Douglas Elliott, George Osborne, and Peter Struffenegger.
Thank you. President Kellogg and honorable members of the Fish and Game Commission, my name is Douglas Elliott. I operate recreational fishing, fee-for-fishing operations in Southern California. My operations are probably the largest in the state and may very well be the largest in the nation. I fish literally thousands of people every single month. I purchase my own fish. In fact, I purchase over $1 million worth of fish each and every year to stock my lakes. We patrol, we regulate, and control our own facilities. And as a result, we get no assistance from the Department of Fish and Game, from the state, county, or city operations. As a result, by design and by designation from the Department of Fish and Game, I have operated as an aquaculturist for over 30 years. However, we are fee-for-fishing operations. I am not a hatchery. There are many lakes in California that operate under aquaculture licenses, so they're actually permitted. And in that regard, they're told what they can stock. However, if these proposed regulations are placed into effect, it would be impossible for my lakes to comply with these proposed regulations, or for that matter, probably any of the other lakes or even some of the hatcheries. Specifically, these proposed regulations for aquaculturists require the testing of every species of fish in every year class for diseases and quarterly investigations for invasive species. Now, this is the problem. My lakes would be impossible to seine. They're a quarter of a mile wide, probably a half a mile long, and 60 or 80 feet deep. So even if I could catch every one of these species in every year class, the cost of DNA testing to test for these diseases and for invasive species would be totally and completely prohibitive. But here's the point. It's totally, completely unnecessary. My fish don't go anywhere. I don't fish, I transport, I'm a fishing operator. My fish are placed in there and fishermen fish them out. Now, there are many problems with these proposed regulations, not limited to the ones that I've mentioned above. They need fine-tuning, and they need to be have input from the stakeholders. I am terribly impressed and enthused by the willing of Sankey Masters to work with us to solve these problems. And I ask you, the members of the Fish and Game Commission, please give them the time that we can work through these problems and come up with workable solutions that will ensure the operations of our hatcheries and ensure the stocking of fish in this great state of California, thereby ensuring recreational fishing for our citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor. Just one comment, really.
Yes,
first off, thank you. Excellent presentation. And I am aware of the, I don't know that it is actually the department's recommendation at this point on the, although I've heard this before, that every single fish in every lake every year is tested. Of course, that is absurd and impossible. And so I would doubt very seriously. First off, I'm even surprised if that is actually what it says, because we haven't seen it yet. But if it is what it says, I'll be even more, well, it won't ultimately pass the smell test, certainly with me, and I would guess the whole commission. It's an impossibility. So, as I'd mentioned to one of the previous speakers, the key here is going to be making sure that you're adequately engaged in the process here so that we can come up with an absolutely workable system so that the many private lakes out there that have fishermen on it who don't buy California fishing licenses, which that's why you don't have a whole lot of DFG people there helping out doing things, because you're getting a fee, which is fine. I'm all good with that, but there's no fishing license required here, so it's not necessarily something we're going to put our limited resources into research. But anyway, point of it all is you need to make sure you're engaged so that we don't end up seeing a regulatory package that comes to us that's unreasonable.
Thank you very much, and we're anxious to work with them as well. Thank you very kindly.
Totally agree with that. Go ahead, George Osborne, Peter Streffenegger, and Paul Weekland. Mr. Osborne, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Good morning, Mr. President, Commissioners. George Osborne, representing the California Association for Recreational Fishing. Please remind me in the future not to follow Doug Elliott as a speaker. I don't measure up anywhere near his passion for this. I'm also here to assure you that the association is engaged with the department, and we will continue to be engaged and work through this process. We've had our first meeting with the department, discussed issues at hand. We've agreed to furnish the department information on stocking and species and where they're stocked that the department's never had before, because they've not been engaged in that business. We've already got our second meeting scheduled for the first part of November, and we intend to again maintain that engagement. Our goal through this process is to address the environmental issues that were raised in the EIR and issues that are important to the department while still allowing the industry to thrive. It's really that simple, and we look forward to working with the department in coming to a successful resolution. We can come relative and say the proposal, the regulation can support enthusiastically. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you. And that's also less than 3 minutes, Mr. Kello.
Peter, Paul Weekland, Ray Heimstra.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Peter Streffenegger. I'm with Sterling Caviar in Sacramento. Been in this aquaculture business for over 30 years. I take Sonky's point seriously that we have a year, but it took us a year to get into this mess, really. And I don't think a year is enough time to work through the details. There are a lot of details, and I think you'd be surprised if you read some of the details that some of the things that we're talking about or what you may have heard are in fact true. That are unworkable, and it's very reassuring to hear that there's a smell test that this has to pass. But I would urge that we don't get backed up against the wall by implementing this and then saying we have still a year to work through the draft. The year passes very quickly. The department has limited resources. The industry has limited resources. Everybody's back up against the wall right now, from the industry side because of the economy, from the department side because of budget cuts. I would urge you to wait until we have something that's a little bit more reasonable, that gets us closer to where we want to be before we start the clock ticking. We've had a long history of working with the department successfully. It doesn't matter who the people are. We've been, our industry, doesn't matter who the individuals are. It doesn't matter who the individuals are with the department. It's been a long, long history of successfully working. It's been successful. It's been beneficial to the department. Mr. Elliott was very modest. His lake is the single largest seller of fishing game licenses. You've got to take things like that into account before you start saying, well, we're going to do a fee for structure for cost. So you feel like one guy, and he pays $1,000 because that's what the actual cost is to do the evaluation, and 5 people drop out of business and don't stock the lakes. And how many fishing licenses won't get sold? There's a balance to this. So, thank you.
Thank you.
If I may. I think, Mr. Streffenegger, one of the things that you can stand down. It's okay. I'm just going to make a comment on what you said. I think one of the things that's important about entering into a time-sensitive process is actually bringing people to the table. Because it's been my experience in government that if we don't do that, people don't necessarily buy into the seriousness of the thing, and they sort of stay back and stay back and stay back, and then at the last minute, the 11th hour, they complain that they weren't informed, or they weren't involved, or they whatever. So I'm actually a real devotee of a 1-year time frame or something like that, where virtually everyone's feet to the fire. And if in fact at the end of that time period someone can convince us that more time is necessary, I'm sure my fellow commissioners will give them more time is necessary. But I applaud going into a time-sensitive process, because in my experience that's the only way it works.
Salke, did you?
Yeah, I heard the last person who testified and Elliot, there seems to be some confusion I'd like to clear up that may cause some more comfort than there might be now. When you originally had this issue served up to you back in June, I think it was, there were two parts. They were referred to by the presenter, Neil Manji, as Phase 1 and Phase 2. Many of the comments that refer to disease testing, etc., we're part of Phase 2. What you have before you is only the Phase 1. We are not dealing with Phase 2 at this time, and we don't know when we will. We just wanted to let you know those are issues. There's a lot of science going on. We don't have answers yet. So that is not before you, and as you correctly pointed out, Commissioner, those things aren't in the reg package because that's not part of this rulemaking. But again, I agree, it's a process I think we need to engage. People need motivation to solve problems, and I think it's appropriate to move forward. We have time, and as of always, in your rulemaking package, there'll be the no change alternative, and it's your pleasure on ultimately what you want to do.
The only thing I was going to say is I agree with what Richard said. You know, I'm completely comfortable with starting the process and having a year. That's a lot of time, and if it's a big enough issue to people, they seem to drill down and start to pay attention to it. So otherwise nothing gets done, so we've got to get a kickoff here. So
Final speaker on this is Ray Heimstra. Mr. Heimstra.
Good afternoon. Heimstra, Orange County Keeper, here because working in NOAA, G, and other NGOs to abalone programs specifically for green abalone in the Southern California Bight. So one of the things that we've done is apply for a private stocking permit. One of the things that surprised me is that there wasn't even paperwork or a marine paperwork. We were told that they really didn't have a procedure for us to move forward with the permit, and that it would take possibly a year for them to figure out, you know, how to move forward with this. So I just wanted to, as we're moving forward with this, we need to design a program that takes the appropriate steps and all these type of things. But I hope that special attention can be paid to restoration of threatened and endangered species such as abalone in the marine environment, and I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you very much.
This concludes public comments on this item. Yeah. Staff has a motion, Commissioners, if there's no more discussion, and Deputy Director Shea is prepared with that.
Okay, let's hear the motion.
So suggested motion is that the Fish and Game Commission hereby authorizes staff to publish notice of its intent to amend Section 238.5 Title 14 CCR regarding stocking of aquaculture products to include two items that I thought I heard the Commission indicate their desired regarding the permit fee structure, and also the management of the biological analysis, whether it be through private contractor or through the department.
So moved.
Okay, I got a motion.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous, and it'll be recorded as such.
So to summarize, Commissioner Rogers moved, Commissioner Richards seconded. The vote was 4-0 with Commissioner Sutton absent.